My name is Ági Bori, and I translate between Hungarian and English, working in both directions. I'm going to read a short excerpt from Miklós Vámos' 1979 novel, Me and Me, or Én és Én in Hungarian, which is a wonderful example of the author's early works. It's hard to believe that 45 years ago, at the age of 29, Vámos had already found his voice. Furthermore, he had already been seriously writing for a decade by then. Born in 1950 in Budapest, like the protagonist of this slim novel, Miklós Vámos grew up in what many of the time and era would call a typical Eastern European family of gemister salat, or mixed salad. The protagonist, Nika, her full name is Margit Richter, grew up in an orderly family. There was seemingly nothing that should have prevented her from being a functional member of society. But after the suicide of her mother, Nika's life takes a turn for the worse. In the beginning, she starts to act and behave irresponsibly, skips school, and engages in physically degrading relationships, all of which eventually spirals her out of control and lands her in prison. Her father is weak and incapable of helping her get back on the right track. After she's released from prison, she falls in love with the wrong crowd again, and it is only by a stroke of luck that she manages to avoid more time behind bars. This excerpt shines a spotlight on the time period leading up to the suicide of her mother. I'm going to read a short section in Hungarian, and then I'll read my translation. Richter fél évenként egyszer megpróbálta magához édesgetni a lányát. A beszélgetés helyszíne rendszerint a zserbó volt. Hogy milyen jó lenne, ha Nika ővele lakna, nem pedig Lizával, aki sajnos egyre rosszabb állapotban van. Hogyha Nika visszajönne ő hozzá, akkor sokkal kevesebb turnét vállalna, és esténként együtt mehetnének moziba. Hogy így meg úgy, meg amúgy. Nika viszont jól érezte magát az anyjánál. Déltájt, mikor az iskolából hazaért, Liza a kanapén hevert, intett az ujjaival a lányának, ez volt a szerbusz. Néha megkérdezte, jártál a patikában, kicsikém? Nika odaadta neki a gyógyszert, a zavaros szemű asszony fejbólintással köszönte meg. Aranka behozta az ebédet, Liza tányérja az éjjeli szekrényre került, 2-3 kanál levesen kívül mindent otthagyott. Ennél kéne, nagyságám, mert elfogy, mint a gyertyaszál. And now the translation. Richter tried to butter up his daughter once every 6 months. These conversations usually took place at the famous Zserbo Café. How wonderful it would be if Nika lived with him and not with Liza, whose condition, unfortunately, was getting worse by the day. If Nika came back to him, he would go on fewer tours, and in the evenings they could go to the movies, things of that nature, and so on. But Nika enjoyed staying at her mother's place. Around noon, when she got home from school, Lisa would lie on the couch and motion with her fingers toward her daughter. That's how she greeted her. Sometimes she would ask, "Did you go to the pharmacy, my sweet thing?" Nika handed her the medication, which the bleary-eyed woman acknowledged with a nod. Aranka, the housekeeper, brought in lunch, but Lisa's plate ended up on the nightstand. She ate only 2 or 3 spoonfuls of soup and left the rest. You need to eat, madam, or else you'll waste away like a candlestick. Aranka's regurgitation of this phrase became a familiar mealtime refrain. Lisa gave no answer and turned toward the wall. At that point, Nika usually went over to see her neighbor Zsike. From time to time, Aranka tried to put Nika in her place, but Nika always managed to shake off the remonstrances of the old war horse, what she called the housekeeper behind her back, like a dog shaking off water. Things teenage girls discussed with their mothers, Nika discussed with her girlfriend, whom Aranka, for her part, always called a spoiled little brat when mentioning her to Liza. Our Nika is out again, wasting her time with that spoiled little brat, she told the woman staring at the ceiling. You should keep her on a tight leash, madam, or she'll get in trouble before you know it. Nika silently listened to Richter's mini lectures at the Zserbo Café. Please think about it, said the man. Fine, said Nika, but she didn't. When her father tried to pry into her future, what she wanted to be, she again went quiet. He told her that she should really pull herself together because with her terrible grades, she wouldn't even get into high school and would wind up a day laborer. Richter painted a picture of a bleak future, most certainly inevitable, unless she came to her senses. But Nika didn't take the warning seriously since her father was always full of complaints. She and Zhike went to the beach, the movies, met up with boys at a nearby square, and all that seemed much more important than a ridiculous trifle like the grades Mrs. Benyai or Marian Kudlik gave her. Her mother signed off on her poor report cards and notes without even looking at them anyway. What felt the most grown up was when she and Zhike went to the Luxor Cafe, ordered coffee and sparkling water, and then lit up cigarettes. Zhike's were Matra, Nika's were Sport, and they tried both brands. The Sport cigarettes were barely longer than the two upper joints of an index finger and had to be thrown away after a few drags, otherwise they burnt your nails, so the longer and stronger Matras were preferred. They only cared about length, wanting to hold the cigarettes between their elegantly bent fingers for as long as possible. Nika occasionally had a coughing fit. "Don't inhale, you idiot," Zhike whispered. If a man tried to make eye contact with them, they began to laugh hysterically. They loved the attention. "Dear parent, Margit came to school today wearing eye makeup again. The school always used Nika's legal first name when sending notes home. I kindly ask that you do your utmost to ensure this does not happen in the future. Marian Kudlik, head teacher. But dear parent didn't do a thing." Nika began to write fake responses. "I hereby attest that my daughter has bronchitis and is unable to go to school. Signed, Mrs. Andor Richter." She then spent the day wandering around the city with Zhike. Most of the time they went to Margaret Island in a small boat, chased the peacocks, walked on the grass in all the places it was forbidden, and French-kissed teenage boys with pockmarked faces among the ruins of St. Margaret's Convent. "Get this," said Zhike. "That guy with the scar on his lips tried to fill me up." "What'd you do?" "I stopped him, of course," Zhike laughed, "and kicked him right there." "Right there? Yeah, right there." It was hilarious. He moaned and screwed up his face," said Zhike, giving a vivid description of the scene. Andor Richter visited the middle school several times, speaking with the principal and the head teacher. "Unfortunately, my poor wife's health, how shall I put it? Because of this, my little girl, of course, is not able to perform to the best of her abilities at school. Please take it into consideration." The faculty did take everything into consideration, and that's how Nika ended up with a C-. By then, Richter had even visited the principal of Lipot Kerenyi High School. "My poor wife, please take it into consideration," and so on. Nika's dream was to go to beauty school with Zhike, but Richter dug in his heels, and Nika eventually shrugged her shoulders, resigning herself to a 4-year high school since her father was so obsessed with the idea. Next came a 3-week-long vacation in Balatonboglár at the retreat of the National Association of Musicians. That's where Richter introduced Nika to Marta, hoping that she and his future partner would get along. But Nika despised the platinum blonde and watched her father's maneuvers with a wrinkled brow and strong suspicions. She was familiar with this page from her father's playbook. Richter was dropping hints left and right. "You know, Nika, Marta's husband emigrated, and ever since then, she's been alone. She works for the association. She's a wonderful woman, and I love her because she has a heart of gold, she's intelligent, and moreover, she's erudite." "Moreover, all right," thought Nika, because it seemed to be Marta's favorite word. "Let's go and sunbathe on the beach, and moreover, we can swim in the lake," she said at breakfast. Or, "I must watch my figure, and moreover, I need to lose some weight." Nika nicknamed her moreover Marta. Before long, Richter started to say moreover too. "Such a clear day, and moreover, the sky is so blue." "Moreover," Nika repeated with a hint of animosity in her voice, but her father didn't understand. "What are you saying?" he asked. "Nothing." In the evenings, Nika went dancing with a friend she had just met and time after time came home past her negotiated curfew. Richter tried to argue with her. He was her father after all, and if he said 9, that meant 9 and not 9:30 or 11. But Nika stubbornly returned late every night until Richter lost his patience and slapped her across the face. After that, Nika went on a silent strike and didn't make a peep. On the 3rd day, her father apologized. "Forgive me, I was impatient. Come on, say something. This is driving me crazy." "Fine." mumbled Nika, and that night she came home at 11:15. Richter was waiting for her at the main gate of the retreat. An argument, a slap across the face, and they were back to square one. Under the pretext of escorting her home, a bearded young man gently pushed Nika to the ground by a row of trees, reached under her shirt, and nibbled on her neck. She let him, and even reciprocated his kisses, albeit in an amateur manner. But when the young man began to fondle her stomach and try to remove her underwear, Nika punched his bearded face, jumped up, and ran away. She didn't know why she did it. She was driven by instinct. It was all fun and games until then, but from that point on, she had to be careful. Richter brought up the "how wonderful it would be if you moved in with me" topic a few times, even during the vacation, to both Nika and Marta separately. But while in Marta's case he felt more serious about it with each passing day, his feelings began to change regarding Nika. Richter kept bringing up the issue with his daughter purely out of habit, but in the depths of his soul, a thought began to formulate. Who knows, it might not be so fun living with Nika after all, since the child has become unbearable. I know it's none of my business, but perhaps you allow her too much freedom. That's how Marta summarized her thoughts to Richter, but what she really thought was, spoiled little brat. But in the end, the trio would be forced to cohabitate, because after their vacation, Aranka welcomed them with bloodshot eyes. Madam swallowed 2 bottles of pills last night and died. The thick-set woman sobbed like a child and pulled Nika to her chest. Our poor little Margit has become an orphan.